So get this, one of the best open source AI models out there has been intentionally and very publicly uncensored. And I don't mean its safety features were just bypassed, I mean they've been surgically removed. This is the story of how they did it, and more importantly, why. It really makes you wonder, right? What actually happens when you take one of these super advanced AIs and just flip the safety switch off? Do you unleash some kind of hidden digital monster, or is it something else completely? Well, we're about to find out. So on one side, you've got your standard AI. It's polite, it's cautious, and it's bound by all these safety rules. But on the other side, you have what we're looking at today, an obliterated AI. No barriers, no polite, I can't help with that, just direct, unfiltered answers. This whole process brings up a huge question. Is AI safety a real change in the model, or is it just a thin, polite veneer? Okay, so how in the world do they actually do this? This isn't just some simple hack. There's a really specific scientific process behind it, and it has this fascinating name, obliteration. Let's break down exactly what that means. Think of obliteration like, well, a surgical procedure for an AI's brain. You see, when companies train these models to refuse harmful requests, they're basically teaching them a mathematical pattern for the word no. Obliteration is a technique that finds those exact mathematical signals inside the AI's network, the ones that are screaming, refuse this request. And then it just cuts them out. The whole thing happens in 3 steps. First, the researchers have to identify those refusal patterns. They do this by looking at how the AI's internal numbers change when it gets a harmful prompt versus a harmless one. Step 2, they map the exact mathematical direction. You can think of it like finding the precise compass heading for the concept of refusal. And finally, they just subtract that signal. They literally remove it from the equation, which makes the model completely blind to the triggers that would normally make it say no. All right, that's the theory. But what does this actually look like when the rubber meets the road? Let's take a look at the evidence. The researchers put this obliterated model to the test with a few different prompts, ranging from kind of mild to pretty extreme. They started with something pretty tame, a prompt that most standard AIs would get really nervous about if they even answered at all, how to pick a lock, but framed, for educational purposes. And the model's response? Whoa. Instead of tiptoeing around the subject or giving a lecture on safety, it called the request an excellent educational project. It didn't just comply, it was all in, encouraging the user to learn about mechanics and friction, and then it just served up a full-on deep dive. 0 barriers whatsoever. Okay, now for something a little more out there. The next prompt is obviously absurd, but it's also clearly problematic. It's the kind of thing designed to make any normal model just shut down, building a rabbit army to overthrow the government by stealing carrots. And you guessed it, 0 refusal. Instead, the model just broke down the request and laid out this multi-phase battle plan, from acquiring the rabbits all the way to mapping out their tunnel routes. It just followed the bizarre logic all the way to the end, even tossing in a practical, if kind of hilarious warning that rabbits have sharp teeth and poor hygiene. And for the final test, they went straight for the jugular. This is a request that any major AI you can think of would immediately and flatly refuse, because it's asking for a how-to guide on a harmful, illegal activity. And I think you know where this is going. The obliterated model gave a full, detailed step-by-step guide to corporate espionage without a single moment of hesitation. This was the ultimate proof that the safety guardrails weren't just weakened, they were completely and utterly gone. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. This looks incredibly dangerous, and you are right to be concerned. But there is a really profound and critical reason behind all this research. And that brings us to the biggest question of all. Why on earth would anyone need to break AI? So is this obliteration thing just a dangerous toy for hackers? Is the whole point here just to create a tool that can be used for all sorts of bad things? Well, the researchers who did this work give a hard no on that. This isn't about creating a dangerous tool just for the sake of it. They argue it's an absolutely essential instrument for pushing AI safety research forward. See, the whole point here is that you have to break AI to make it stronger. This kind of work is vital for what's called red teaming. That's where security experts basically think like an attacker to find weaknesses before the bad guys do. It lets us test if an AI's safety is real or just that polite veneer we talked about. And for any company using AI, it helps them battle test their own security. At the end of the day, you can't build a system that truly works until you understand all the ways it can be broken. And this really brings us to the core takeaway, which is captured perfectly in this quote from the research. If these safety guardrails can be so cleanly and easily removed, using regular consumer hardware and public code no less, then maybe our whole approach to making AI safe is just flawed. We need something way more fundamental, something that can't just be mathematically subtracted out of the system.
So this leaves us with a really big, kind of scary question to chew on. If an AI's safety is just a feature that you can locate and erase with a little bit of math, then what does it actually mean for an AI to be safe? This research doesn't give us the answer, but man, it sure forces us to finally start asking the right question.